The vessel has been drifting for 11 days on every maritime tracking system that covers the northern Arabian Sea: the commercial AIS aggregators, the Lloyd's intelligence feed, the U.S. Navy's Maritime Domain Awareness Picture, the Joint Surveillance Network operated through Naval Forces Central Command, the MV Arzhan Prospect, presents as a 48,000-ton Aframax tanker registered in the Comoros Islands, flagged under a Marshall Islands operating certificate issued 14 months ago, currently showing a mechanical fault advisory on its AIS transponder and holding a stationary position at 24.17 degrees north, 60.44 degrees east. Its last port call, according to the Lloyd's voyage record, was Fujairah, UAE, where it loaded a partial cargo of light crude on February 19th. Its stated destination was Karachi. It never arrived. Its AIS track shows a gradual slowing and then a full stop beginning on February 20th, consistent with a propulsion system casualty. The vessel has been transmitting an AIS status code of 5, moored, with position updates cycling every 4 minutes in the standard broadcast interval for a stationary vessel. It is not moored. There is no anchorage at 24.17 north, 60.44 east. The water depth at that position is 2,340 meters. The vessel is drifting on a current that moves at 0.4 knots northwest, correcting its position every few hours with brief engine activations that do not appear on any publicly accessible tracking record, because those activations are timed to occur during the 4-minute intervals between AIS position broadcasts and are too short in duration to register as movement on the update cycle. The Arzhan Prospect is not broken down. It is holding station with the patience of a vessel that has been positioned precisely for a purpose and is waiting for the conditions that purpose requires. Those conditions begin to materialize on February 28th, when Operation Epic Fury opens with the first joint U.S.-Israeli strike packages lifting from the Truman's and Lincoln's flight decks, and the first Tomahawk salvos leaving destroyer tubes across the northern Arabian Sea. The Arzhan Prospect's position, 340 miles south-southeast of the Strait of Hormuz and 290 miles from the nearest point of the Iranian coastline, places it in the center of the Arabian Sea's deep-water operating envelope, the sea room that both carrier strike groups are using for their launch cycles, their recovery patterns, and their formation geometry as they conduct sustained strike operations against targets throughout Iran's southern and central provinces. At 6:14 a.m. on March 1st, 18 hours into Epic Fury's execution, a P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft conducting a standard area surveillance sweep 120 miles to the north of the Arzhan Prospect's position makes a passive electronic collection contact that its mission systems operator initially logs as an anomalous emission. A low-power, highly directional transmission burst lasting 1.8 seconds on a frequency band that does not correspond to any commercial maritime communication standard. The burst is gone before the P-8's collection system can generate a precise bearing. The mission systems operator logs it, assigns it a reference number, and continues the sweep. The log entry reaches the Joint Electronic Intelligence Processing Cell in Bahrain at 8:30 a.m. as part of the routine mission data download. It sits in the unprocessed queue for 4 hours. At 12:47 p.m., an electronic intelligence analyst at the processing cell pulls the reference entry as part of a broader review of anomalous emission contacts collected across the Arabian Sea operating area in the first 48 hours of Epic Fury. The 1.8-second burst is not, in isolation, significant. What makes it significant is its context. The analyst is working from a classified threat profile document that describes the technical characteristics of a specific IRGC covert communication system, a low probability of intercept directional burst transmitter used for real-time targeting data relay between maritime collection platforms and shore-based anti-ship missile batteries. The frequency band, burst duration, and power level of the contact all fall within the described parameters of that system. The analyst elevates the contact to the intelligence watch cell with an assessment notation. Possible LPI targeting relay. Source location approximate. Further collection required. The intelligence watch cell's response is immediate and multi-layered. A second P-8, currently on station 80 miles east of the Arzhan Prospect's position, is redirected to run a precise bearing cut on the area of the initial contact. An EP-3E Ares signals intelligence aircraft operating from a Gulf base is retasked to extend its collection orbit southward toward the Arabian Sea operating area. And the Maritime Domain Awareness Analyst on duty is directed to pull the full track history and vessel background for every surface contact within a 50-mile radius of the original contact's approximate bearing intersection. The track history review produces the Arzhan Prospect within 20 minutes. The vessel's 11-day stationary history, its claimed mechanical status, its cargo and routing history, and its precise position within the carrier strike group's operating geometry all trigger a second look that the initial AIS review had not prompted, because on the surface, a broken-down tanker is not an unusual feature of the Arabian Sea traffic picture. There are, on any given day, between 4 and 9 vessels showing mechanical or operational fault status in the broader Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea region. The Arzhan Prospect has been one of those background features for 11 days. Nobody had looked past the AIS code. The vessel background check goes deeper. The operating certificate issued in the Marshall Islands traces to a ship management company registered in Oman, whose beneficial ownership, when extracted from the corporate registry through the Treasury Department's financial intelligence tools, resolves through a Dubai holding company to a Sharjah-based trading firm that appeared in a 2024 ONI assessment of IRGC maritime front companies used for sanctions evasion and operational logistics support. The Comoros registry flag, the Marshall Islands certificate, the Omani management company, and the Dubai holding structure form a layering architecture that is a documented pattern in IRGC maritime deception operations. Each layer is individually legitimate. The combination is designed to defeat automated screening systems that work one registry at a time. The Arzhan Prospect is not a broken-down tanker. It is an IRGC intelligence collection and targeting relay platform that has been pre-positioned in the center of the carrier strike group's operating envelope 11 days before Epic Fury began, waiting for exactly the operational conditions that Epic Fury created. The EP-3E arrives in collection range at 2:11 p.m. and begins a systematic sweep of the frequency bands associated with the LPI targeting relay profile. At 2:34 p.m., it captures a second burst, 2.1 seconds, same frequency band, same technical characteristics as the first contact, originating from a bearing that intersects with the Arzhan Prospect's position to within a margin of error of approximately 1.4 nautical miles. At 2:38 p.m., a third burst. At 2:41 p.m., a fourth. The bursts are cycling at irregular intervals ranging from 3 to 7 minutes, an interval pattern consistent with a tracking relay that is updating target position data in near real time as the tracked vessel moves through its operational pattern. Something on the Arzhan Prospect is watching the carrier strike groups. It is watching them with enough precision and at a high enough update rate to support a ballistic missile targeting solution. And it is transmitting what it sees to someone on shore. The intelligence picture assembles with a speed driven by the understanding of what those transmissions represent. A shore-based IRGC anti-ship ballistic missile battery, specifically a Khalij Fars precision anti-ship variant battery, assessed to be positioned at a site in Hormozgan Province that has been on the target list for Epic Fury's strike packages, has been receiving updated positional data on the carrier strike groups at 3 to 7 minute intervals since at least 6:14 a.m., possibly since February 28th, possibly since before the operation began. The targeting geometry that the shore battery's fire control system has been building is not based on estimated or predicted positions. It is based on observed, current, continuously updated positions provided by a collection platform sitting 290 miles from the coast in the middle of the operating area, with an unobstructed line of sight to every surface contact in the formation. The 5th Fleet Commander receives the intelligence package at 3:07 p.m. The operational decision that follows takes 8 minutes to make and generates a set of instructions that are, on their surface, simple. The carrier strike groups will alter their positions. Not immediately, not in a way that is visible to the Arzhan Prospect's collection systems as a reaction to detection, but gradually, over the course of the next 3 hours, through a series of heading and speed changes that individually look like normal formation management, and collectively move the Lincoln and the Truman to positions 34 and 41 nautical miles from where the Arzhan Prospect's targeting relay has been reporting them. The movement will be complete before the next assessed launch window for the Hormozgan battery, a window calculated from the battery's communication patterns and the logistics timeline of its assessed missile load. While the ships move, the EP-3E maintains continuous collection on the Arzhan Prospect's transmissions. Every burst is logged, timed, and analyzed. The burst content itself is encrypted to a standard that does not yield to real-time decryption, but the metadata, timing, frequency, power, directional bearing, provides a complete operational picture of the relay's collection rhythm. By 5 p.m., the electronic intelligence team has mapped the collection system's sensor sweep pattern with enough precision to determine what type of sensor is generating the tracking data. The burst characteristics are consistent with a signal relay fed by a passive radar cross-section monitoring system, a low-power, narrow-beam radar operating in a mode that is designed to be invisible to the standard electronic warfare receivers fitted to the carrier and its escorts, because it transmits at a power level and duty cycle that falls below their detection floor when the receiver is not specifically configured to look for it. The Arzhan Prospect is not just a communication relay. It is an active sensor platform. It has been illuminating the carrier strike groups with a low-power tracking radar that has been invisible to the formation's electronic warfare systems for 11 days, because no one had reason to configure those systems to look for a signal at that power level from a broken-down tanker 30 miles outside the formation's normal awareness perimeter. At 6:15 p.m., the Arzhan Prospect transmits a burst. At 6:22 p.m., it transmits another. Both are logged. Both show the same positional data, because the carrier strike groups have completed their repositioning, and the Arzhan Prospect sensors are now tracking empty ocean in the formation's previous position, while the Lincoln and the Truman are 34 and 41 miles away. The targeting relay does not know this. It is reporting with confidence what its sensors show. Its sensors show what was there 3 hours ago. At 6:47 p.m., the shore battery at Hormozgan receives what its fire control system assesses as a high-confidence targeting solution on the Lincoln. The position is current to within the relay's last update interval. The trajectory calculation is optimized for the reported position. The engagement window, calculated from the carrier's assessed launch cycle timing, its formation geometry, and the atmospheric conditions over the northern Arabian Sea, is assessed as opening in 19 minutes. At 7:04 p.m., 6 Khalij Fars anti-ship ballistic missiles lift from the Hormozgan battery site in a rapid sequence launch that puts all 6 weapons airborne within 40 seconds. The fire control solution they are flying toward places the Lincoln at 23.51 north, 59.82 east. The Lincoln is at 23.17 north, 59.41 east. The difference in those two positions, 0.34 degrees of latitude, 0.41 degrees of longitude, represents 41 nautical miles of open water between the missile's computed aim points and the ship they are designed to reach. The Lincoln's Aegis system acquires the Khalij Fars launches in boost phase at 7:05 p.m., through the data-sharing architecture of the strike group's distributed sensor network. The threat tracks are established and firing solutions computed across 41 seconds of boost phase observation. The first SM-6 intercept fires at 7:06 p.m. The engagement geometry is clean. The missiles are flying toward a position the Lincoln has vacated, which means their terminal approach vector is not optimized for the carrier's actual position, and the intercept solutions do not have to compensate for the evasive maneuvering geometry that a correctly targeted engagement would require. The third, fourth, and fifth intercepts are textbook. The sixth Khalij Fars, the trailing weapon, flying a slightly depressed trajectory designed to arrive during the reload cycle after the lead missiles have exhausted the intercept allocation, is acquired by the escort cruiser operating on the northern edge of the formation and engaged at 18 nautical miles with an SM-2 that has been held in reserve precisely for this contingency. The intercept fires at 7:09 p.m. The detonation is visible on the Lincoln's radar scope as a clean return collapse 18 miles to the southwest, followed by a debris scatter that the radar tracks briefly before the pieces fall below the detection floor. 6 missiles launched, 6 removed from the battle space, 0 reaching the formation. At 7:14 p.m., an FA-18F from the Lincoln's air wing, already airborne on a strike sortie and redirected through the airborne mission commander at 6:55 p.m., arrives over the Arzhan Prospect's position with a targeting solution provided by the EP-3E's collection data and confirmed by the P-8's final bearing cut. The pilot identifies the vessel visually through his targeting pod. The vessel is showing running lights. It is not maneuvering. At 7:16 p.m., an AGM-84H Slammer precision standoff missile is released from a range that keeps the F/A-18 outside the effective envelope of any shipboard point defense system the Arzhan Prospect might carry. The weapon's infrared terminal seeker acquires the vessel's superstructure at 7:18 p.m. The strike is assessed as a direct hit on the vessel's communications and sensor mast array, the specific structure housing the directional transmitter and the low-power tracking radar that have been the operational heart of the relay platform. A second weapon, released 12 seconds after the first, impacts the vessel's engineering spaces. The Arzhan Prospect is rendered inoperable. Its systems are silent. It transmits nothing after 7:18 p.m. The shore battery at Hormozgan receives no further targeting updates. Its targeting relay is gone. Its 6-missile salvo has already been fired and has already failed. The battery's own electronic systems detect the loss of the relay signal at approximately the same time the fire control crews are computing that the Khalij Fars missiles should have been reaching their terminal phase. They do not receive impact confirmation. They receive silence. The operational picture available to the battery commander at 7:20 p.m. is a dead relay, a failed salvo, and the awareness that the carrier formation he believed he was tracking with real-time precision is somewhere he does not know, at a distance he cannot measure, with its defensive systems fully operational and its location precisely unknown to him. The battery does not attempt to fire again that night. The classified after-action reconstruction maps the full operational timeline of the Arzhan Prospect, from its corporate origin through its positioning and execution. The vessel was acquired through the layered ownership structure 19 months before Epic Fury began. Its low-power tracking radar system was installed during a refit period at a facility in Bandar Abbas in November 2025, 4 months before the operation. Its positioning in the Arabian Sea began 11 days before the first strike, timed to the point where a stationary vessel with a fault advisory would have settled into the background noise of the maritime picture before the operational period made it significant. The targeting relay architecture was designed to operate at a power level and duty cycle calculated to remain below the detection floor of the carrier strike group's standard EW configuration, a level of knowledge about U.S. naval electronic warfare parameters that implies either a long-term signals intelligence collection effort against those systems or access to technical documentation describing their detection thresholds. The total dwell time of the relay platform before detection was 18 hours into the operation. More than enough had the EP-3E not logged the initial burst, and had the analyst not connected it to the LPI threat profile document at 12:47 p.m. to build a targeting solution of sufficient precision to support a credible strike on both carrier strike groups during their launch cycle windows. The assessment team's retrospective calculation of the targeting quality the Arzhan Prospect had achieved by the time it was detected concludes that the Hormozgan battery's fire control system had a carrier position solution accurate to within 2.1 nautical miles at the time of launch, degraded by the repositioning to 41 nautical miles at the time of impact, but accurate by any standard against a static or predictably moving target. The numbers the after-action record carries: 11 days the Arzhan Prospect held its collection position before Epic Fury began. 18 hours of active targeting relay operations before the initial burst was detected. 19 months of corporate preparation before the vessel was operationally deployed. 6 Khalij Fars missiles launched against a position 41 nautical miles from the actual formation. 6 intercepts, all clean, all against trajectories optimized for a position the carrier had vacated 3 hours earlier. 1 SLAM-R strike on the relay platform at 7:18 p.m. 1 battery that fired everything it had and hit empty water. 0 damage to fleet assets. And 1 electronic intelligence analyst in Bahrain who pulled an unprocessed log entry from a 4-hour-old queue at 12:47 p.m. and recognized a 1.8-second burst on a frequency band he had seen in a threat profile document. The deeper operational lesson is one that the after-action documentation addresses at length. The Arzhan Prospect represented a class of threat that sits at the intersection of 2 surveillance blind spots that every modern naval force manages imperfectly. The first blind spot is the background noise of the maritime environment itself. The hundreds of vessels at any given time showing fault advisories, mechanical status codes, and operational anomalies that are individually unremarkable. A surveillance architecture built to flag every stationary vessel with a fault code would generate a volume of secondary investigation that would overwhelm the analytical capacity allocated to it. The IRGC planners understood this. They built the Arzhan Prospect to be exactly unremarkable enough to stay in that background. The right size, the right flag state, the right cargo history, the right timing relative to when its position became operationally significant. The vessel had been in the maritime domain awareness picture for 11 days before anyone looked at it with the question that mattered. And that question only became possible to ask because a P-8 logged a burst that a different analyst on a different shift might have marked as radio frequency interference and moved on. The second blind spot is the gap between detection floor and threat threshold. The operating space where a sensor or transmitter can function, because the systems designed to detect it are calibrated against a higher power level. The Arzhan Prospect's tracking radar was not powerful enough to defeat the carrier's EW detection systems by any margin that would have registered as a margin at all. It was invisible because it was quiet. The quietness was engineered. The power level was not an accident of the system's capability. It was the system's primary design parameter, selected specifically because the detection floor of the carrier's EW configuration at that operational range was a known value, and the radar's operating power was set 12% below it. That kind of specification implies access to technical data about U.S. naval EW systems that is not available through any open-source channel and is not derivable from observation alone. It implies a collection effort against that technical data, or a source who possessed it, that predates the Arzhan Prospect's construction, and that remains, at the time of the after-action assessment, an open intelligence question with implications extending beyond this single operation. The ship that looked broken was not broken. The signal that looked like noise was not noise. The position that the targeting relay reported with confidence was the position of empty ocean, because someone had moved the fleet 3 hours before the missiles were fired, and the relay had not been told, and the battery had trusted the data its system gave it without knowing that the source of that data had been identified, monitored, and fed a formation geometry that had already ceased to exist. In naval warfare, the vessel you ignore because it looks ordinary is the one that was built to look ordinary. The background is where the most patient weapons wait.